Brands Hatch is the venue for round 2 of the Blancpain GT Series Sprint Cup. It's a fabulous circuit, it's a real driver's track this, and we are in for 2 fabulous races this weekend. Last time out, it was all action at Zolder. The main race had Lamborghini on pole position, Mirko Bortolotti a little slow away from the line. Audi jumped briefly, but Bortolotti was back ahead as the cars poured their way through turn 1. Others less fortunate. There was contact at the very first corner, and Robin Frins had traffic all around him as he tried to carve his way through the pack. There were cars sporting damage on the opening lap, bodywork rubbing against tyres, but the number 11 Kessel Racing Ferrari was really in strife. An early puncture for Michael Broniszewski's car, forcing that into the pit lane and out of contention in Pro-Am. Andrea Caldarelli was charging on in the Grasser Racing Team Lamborghini. He had Robin Frins behind him, but he was also closing on Carlo Van Dam, and there was a great 3-way battle until the Lamborghini squeezed through on the inside at turn 1. The 2 Italian cars trading places. Up front with an 8-second lead was Mirko Bortolotti as the pit stops loomed. Bortolotti would come in to hand over to Christian Engelhardt, who had trouble with his belt. And number 2 of Dries Vanthoor blasted away in the lead, but taking some of the pit lane cones with him. Badly delayed was Engelhardt, still in the pit lane, losing chunks of time. A mechanic in the pit lane meant that there would be a drive-through for number 63 Lamborghini and a drive-through for the Audi as well for clattering the cones. Into the lead came Stein Schothorst. There was another good fight going on lower down as Robin Frins and Stuart Leonard's car tried to get up the order. Vanthoor lent on Simon Gachet going through turn 1 and got a second drive-through for his pains. That meant it was a race win for Attempto and Stein Schothorst and Kelvin van der Linde. Second across the line, the ACA ASP Mercedes of the Brit Michael Meadows and Raffaele Marchiello. But there was delight for Schothorst and van der Linde. Audi won at Zolder. Audi also won the Endurance opener at Monza. So here on home soil, Will Stevens is looking for a good result with his WRT run car that he shares with the demon fast Dries Vanthoor.
Yeah, it should be good. Zolder got off to a good and a bad start in a way. The first race we finished P2, which was a great way to start the year. The second race we were leading before Dries made a small mistake leaving the box. He went over some cones, so we felt like that was a race win which got away. So yeah, overall a positive start. Our pace was strong and heading to Brands, my home track. It should be a really strong race. Audi's always good here. Last year we had a 3rd place, so we're confident heading into the weekend.
The Lexus, run by Emil Frey Racing, is getting better and better all the time. The car becoming more competitive. And although it's in its infancy, this project, you can see the potential. And so also can one of the men behind the wheel. That is Albert Costa, and he is looking for good results here on a real driver's circuit. Is the Lexus well suited to Brands Hatch?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, everything is new, not only for the driver's mode, it's also for the team. And it's a very old school track. It's very tight. It's very difficult. A small mistake you have, you can go to the grass because it's very there is no option to do any mistake. And yeah, all the teams are here. It's been a lot of years before like racing here. They have a lot of experience. They've been in the sprint and endurance for many years. And we are a small team. We are not factory. We are private, and we're still learning. We're still developing this new car. But I believe with them, we have a huge people around. So we need time only. Just please wait.
Stuart Leonard and Robin Frins didn't have a great start to the season at Zolder, but here on Leonard's home soil at Brands Hatch, he's hoping for better fortune. And here is somebody who becomes increasingly competitive round by round. So what can he do for a race win at Brands Hatch?
I have been here quite a lot. It's kind of like, I guess, my home track, so I do generally feel quite comfortable here. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, it'll be. It's a fun, exciting place. And not a lot of room for mistakes. Last year, actually, it kind of hit me. I think Hungaroring, which is the second to last round, that we were in a strong position. I think we had 2 DNFs in the first 2 rounds, so we came back from that really strong. I think this year we've been more consistent with points and results. I think we can do better. and I hope we will do better.
After a season in the Endurance Cup last year, Yorkshireman Josh Cahill is in the Sprint Cup this season with Team Parker Racing and the original Bentley Continental GT3, and he's loving being back in the cut and thrust of sprint racing.
Yeah, the track's definitely suits us a lot better here at Brands Hatch. Zolder wasn't our strongest place to start, but hopefully we can start the year from now and yeah, have a good result. We're both pretty relaxed guys and we just want to sort of help each other and do the best we can. So yeah, definitely we work well together and just trying to keep improving all year really.
We're used to seeing Andrew Watson in a McLaren in the Endurance Cup, but for the Sprint Cup he's in the 3Y Technology BMW. The car has struggled a little bit across free practice, but the team is optimistic for better results come race day.
Yeah, Brands Hatch is probably one of my favourite tracks in the world. It's weird getting a train to a racetrack for a change. But yeah, I mean, I've won races here when I was learning in Ginetta GT Super Cup, so I have a lap record here. So there's a lot of good memories for me, and it's yeah, favourite track on the calendar. And I know the BM's good here, so yeah, really looking forward to this weekend.
In terms of livery, this is the most spectacular car on the grid. It's a very quick Ferrari from Kessel Racing, hustled by Carlo Van Dam.
I think what you see from last year, we really made another step. For PT, everything was new, the circuits, even some of the circuits for me were new. And I think everything fits in well this year, and on every area we're a step better than last year, so I believe we can stay ahead in the Pro-Am.
Somebody with huge amounts of experience of circuit and car is Pierre Katherine. He drives for the Attempto Racing squad, and he could well be on the top step of the podium this weekend.
It's an old-fashioned racetrack, and this is what I love. This is something how it should be also for the other racetracks, and that's the reason why I'm really looking forward to be here with the Audi and Peter and to race this weekend. I think Brands has such a history that it's an honor to be here.
Michael Meadows made his name really in the UK as a double Porsche Carrera Cup champion, but now behind the wheel of a Mercedes, he's one of the real stars of the Blancpain GT Series. Could he take a home win?
It's great to be at Brands Hatch. You know, it's a great track. I think all the drivers love it, especially the GP circuit. So hopefully we'll have some good pace. You know, I think we did quite well at Zolder, scored some points and got on the podium. If we can repeat that here, then we'll have a good weekend.
The sun is shining and the cars will shortly be released onto the grid in readiness for race one here at Brands Hatch, the first of the 2 hour-long races that we have today. And it has been a hectic weekend for one or two of the teams because a timetable put into 2 days meant free practice and qualifying yesterday, 2 races today. David Addison and John Watson trackside and looking down onto the grid. Brands Hatch with not a cloud in the sky above, John. Looks absolutely fantastic this weekend.
And it is simply resplendent. 22.6, not much difference in the ambient temperature, but the track temperature has gone up by 3 or so degrees over yesterday. Doesn't seem an awful lot to you or to me, but to the drivers, to the teams, they will know and they will be trying to make little adjustments to the car because that can have an effect. About 1 hour, basically, if you've got a problem, you can forget it. It is so intense.
This is the lap, the circuit, the full Grand Prix circuit, relatively unchanged from the very early days of the place.
The biggest changes are on the outside of the circuit. There is greater runoff around all the corners of Brands Hatch. If you raced here in 1964 or maybe even earlier when the Grand Prix loop was opened, you wouldn't recognise the circuit. You'd say they've taken the character away from Brands Hatch. But make no mistake, this is a proper old school, and I'm going to emphasise it, racetrack.
And it's one that the drivers absolutely love. It's one that bit yesterday. Alexander Kornev had a sizable accident in his Acura ASP Mercedes. The team did a Herculean job to get that car ready for the qualifying sessions. So it is on the grid, all is good, but it was quite a big hit that car suffered. So coming into this first race, of course, after 2 races at Zolder, it is Kelvin van der Linde and Stijn Schorkhorst who lead the championship from Mirko Bortolotti and Christian Engelhardt, more of whom in a moment. Dries van Thor is third with Will Stevens after picking up his penalties in the second race at Zolder. Then you've got Raffaele Marciello and Michael Meadows fourth. Ezequiel Perez Companc are fifth, along with Andrea Caldarelli. And then it's Stuart Leonard and Robin Frins who is missing this weekend. He's on duty elsewhere. They round out the leading drivers within the championship. But further down, there's Alex Riberas, Christopher Mies, 8th in the points. Nicolas Jamin is another driver to keep an eye to because he's gone pretty well so far this weekend. And he is partnered by Felix Sarales. And if you're wondering why there are half points available, it's because that in the case of the 2 1-hour races that we have in the regulations for sprint, a win is 16.5 points, second is 12, third is 9.5, fourth is 7.5, so forth down to half a point for finishing in 10th place. You also get 1 point for being on your class pole position through the qualifying session. So it's a different points system this year, with half points being deliberate. It's not that there was half a race or there were penalties. That is the deliberate point structure now, with half points for certain places.
It's almost as if everybody gets rewarded for finishing the race.
Now down on the grid, let's try and catch up with 1 or 2 of the drivers. The car on the outside of the front row is that of the championship leaders, and Kelvin van der Linde is with our reporter Dakota Jane.
Kelvin, you're on the front row of the grid. What a great place to start a race from. You feeling nervous?
I'm not nervous. I'm just enjoying the sun here in the UK because I don't know when I'll get that again. First time that I've actually seen it like this, and the view from the first row is always a nice one to have. So expectations are high, and let's see what happens.
Let's see. Good luck. Thank you.
Kelvin van der Linde is somebody who's had a very good track record back home in South Africa. He won the Volkswagen Championship, came to Europe, won the Sirocco R Cup as long back as 2013, that supported the DTM, and then he drove in the ADAC GT Masters Championship very, very successfully, but we've not seen much of him on English soil, but he's a very quick driver.
Well, he burst onto the FIA GT3 Blancpain Sprint round in Zolder 3-4 weeks ago, and was most impressive. Speed, a good racer. One of the things that fundamentally people wonder where's the art of overtaking gone to? Well, Kelvin van der Linde found a way to get round a few cars in Zolder. So coming to Brands Hatch, a circuit that in many ways mirrors that of the Belgian circuit. A little bit more elevation here, Brands Hatch, but challenging corners. Of course, Brands Hatch, those principal 9 corners would be probably slightly quicker overall than those at Zolder, but nonetheless, great similarities.
Let's just have a quick look at the grid. Dries Van Thol will start on pole position from Steens Schothorst. Michael Meadows, the Brit, home soil, he goes from 3rd with Alex Riberas alongside him. The other Schothorst brother, Peter Schothorst, is 5th ahead of Nico Bastien. The 4th row, Stuart Leonard and Norbert Siedler ahead of Nicolas Jamin and Christian Klein. Then Ezequiel Perez Companc and Andrew Watson in the BMW. That had a rather slow start to the weekend, but Andrew did a good job actually in qualifying to get it up ahead of the Simon Gachet and Loris Hesemans Audi and Lamborghini. Then Josh Cagill, partnered with touring car racer Aaron Taylor-Smith ahead of Piti Bieron-Bahti, Ian Loggie's Bentley, Neil Stevenart, and then Vladimir Atuev with a penalised Lamborghini starting at the back of the grid. I will come to that story in a moment, but first we need to go back down to the grid and hear from Nico Bastien with Dakota.
Nico, pole position for Silver Cup. This is going to be a really hard race, isn't it?
Yeah, and we are in England, surprisingly. Yeah, the weather's nice. Pole position in Silver Cup, it's our main target for sure. I was a little bit disappointed after qualifying because my second lap would have been also good for the first or second row. But yeah, the race is long. As you said, it's hot. And when we have a decent race, we can also be maybe in top 5 overall, which would be nice.
Kelvin also mentioned this amazing weather transformation here in England. Isn't the atmosphere so great at Brands Hatch, though?
Yeah, I was really surprised at the autocross session. We had like a lot of spectators there at 9 o'clock in the morning. And it's nice to have such a crowd here because then it's much more fun for us racing drivers as well.
And anyone here to support you?
Unfortunately not, but I hope for Nürburgring that there are a lot of friends coming, but here it's the time for Jack, as he is coming here just 40 minutes ago, and he has a lot of fans here.
Okay, come round, Jack. Jack, you had a bit of a difficult day yesterday, a bit of off-road driving, but today, is it all on board?
Yeah, I mean we had free practice too, had little trips to gravel, but got the car back and it's still running fine. I mean I managed to get pole in class for race 2, which is good, but yeah, lots of positives, lots to build on.
Now, unbelievably, you two use the same use the same seat. Isn't that unbelievable?
Yeah, it really is actually. I mean, I don't really know. It's just, yeah, it really shouldn't be possible, but we manage it really well, and yeah, it's comfortable for both of us, and it works brilliantly.
Let's see how you guys go. Good luck to both of you. Oh, now you're okay now.
Not a problem at all.
That's called boxing clever, isn't it? So, Nico Bastien, winner in Blancpain GT Series Asia at the start of the season. Let me just finish off this saga about the Christian Engelhardt and Mirko Bortolotti Lamborghini. It's been put to the back of the grid. It qualified 5th, but excluded from the first qualifying session, put to the back of the grid because the team put the car in the pit garage between sessions, which you're not allowed to do because anything could be done to the car when it's out of sight in the garage. You're under park fair mate conditions, and whether you did anything or not doesn't matter. You can't do that. Time's taken away, and therefore Christian Engelhardt will start at the back of the grid.
I mean, it's a big penalty, a big mistake from the Grasser Racing team, a team that is amongst the most professional in the field, and it's hard to realise what would have been the motivation to put the car into the garage. As we know, it is park fair mate conditions between the end of Q1 and the beginning of Q2. So, I mean, to call it a schoolboy error is almost insulting a schoolboy. It's something even slightly more than that. And the penalty is Mirko Bortolotti, Christian Engelhardt, who will starting from the back. And it's not been the seamless weekend, aside from this issue, that they would have previously or normally enjoyed. I mean, they're having to dig deep. And I know that Mirko told me this morning when he did his qualifying lap yesterday, he was proud of it. He knew how much he'd put into it. We even commented coming out of Stirling's Bend just how much aggression he was putting through the chassis. He bottomed it out on that curb on the exit. And I mean, to see those little moments, you know that's a driver absolutely at the top of his game.
Now the man on pole position is Dries Van Thor. He did an excellent job in his qualifying session. Let's hear from the Belgian.
Dries, now you really look like you're trying to get into the zone here. What is that like to be a driver starting on pole and ready to roar into Paddock Bend?
Starting from pole is always quite a nice feeling, but it's always a bit stressy. You have to do the pace, and you have to make sure you do a good stop, but don't do it the wrong way. But yeah, like I said, it's not the first time for me, so I'll try my best and see if I can give the car to Will in the best way possible.
Now, yesterday was a really good day for you. You were really quick on track. Is today going to be the same? Can you keep the pace up?
I mean, we try, of course. The car was running well yesterday, so I don't think it will be bad today. And we made some few changes. Yeah, I think the car will be good today, so we will try to push as hard as I can and see where we can end up.
Great, good luck, thanks.
Will Stevens, you can see in the background, being interviewed for the Circuit PA for the fans here, and he was half a second slower in his qualifying session. So you get the feeling that the hard work is going to have to be done in this by Dries Van Thor to try and, in his stint, push and build up a lead.
Well, he's got the advantages on pole position. He's got effectively clear track ahead of him. What he needs to be sure is that the Attempter Racing Audi alongside doesn't get into Paddock Hill Bend before him, or the next corner down the track will be Druids, that Dries Van Thor, if he comes out of Paddock ahead of the 66 Attempter car, can control the entry into Druids. If he can achieve those two first corners on the opening lap, then he's got a pretty good chance of controlling the opening lap and therefore going on and consolidating the benefits of being in pole position.
Stefan Rattel is here talking to Vincent Voss, who is becoming ever more familiar in his flat cap. It's not just a SOP being in England, that's a much travelled flat hat, isn't it now?
Yeah, I mean, the reason you wear a hat in England at Brands Hatch, May Day weekend or Bank Holiday weekend, is because, like many of us, I shouldn't say many of us, a number of people in the paddock are suffering from hair loss.
Is that right?
And the sun is really strong, and nothing worse than getting your head looking like a you-know-what.
Got plenty of the fans also with natty headgear. Meantime, on the grid, let's see who Dakota has caught up with next.
Raffaello, what a beautiful day it is. You're starting on not such a bad place on the grid. How are you feeling?
Yeah, we feel good. We had a good quali yesterday, P3 and P2 for the races, so we can score good points today, and yeah, we'll see where we are. Pit stop is quite tricky this year with the sprint, so we have to have a good pit stop, but I think we can have a good race.
Do you think this race is going to be a difficult one?
I think both are difficult. I don't see this one or the next one harder. It's both race difficult, so we have to push always.
21 cars on the grid. Who's to watch out for?
It's quite tricky to overtake in this track, so I think the guys in front will be the one to watch. I think the first 3 rows, they all can win.
And you, of course. Good luck. Thanks.
At that point, the Raffaele Marciello makes about the fact that it's going to be a difficult race is borne out by the fact that you've got so many good drivers and operate all within hundredths of a second of one another. Nobody really has a clear advantage. It is so tight, this championship.
Yes, it is, and that's just on the driver's side. On the car side, with the balance of performance, the difference between a Mercedes, an Audi, a Lamborghini, or whatever in the field is so small. So it's great for close racing, but of course it means that your chances to make a clean pass, and Brands is really about a racetrack that hasn't got any significant straight other than down through Pilgrim's Drop and Hawthorne. Everything else is sort of a continuous curve, and therefore getting into position, being able to get alongside, for example, coming up into Paddock Hill Bend, one of the trickiest corners of any racetrack anywhere in the world. If you stand on the grid, first of all, the grid, there's a slope on the grid, but as you look upwards to the highest point before Paddock, you can't see the corner. So you only see it when you arrive upon it, and then you're a bit too late in turning the wheel. You've got to anticipate where your apex is. Very, very technical circuit, but rewards a driver, I mean the team likewise, but principally the driver, when you know you've done a good lap.
They just don't build them like this anymore, do they?
Not that I'm seeing, certainly not around the world.
So the grid formed, everybody is there, nobody trapped in the pit lane, nobody with any dramas after yesterday. Can I put you on the spot? Who's going to win this?
I mean, it's getting into turn one first, getting into Paddock Hill Bend first. It's a race of two paces. One is up to the pit stops, the rest will be after the pit stops.
Now let's catch up on Matta's Lamborghini. Mirko Bortolotti is with Dakota.
Mirko, now you really have a challenge on your hands here. Sorry, I'm out of breath.
Say again?
You really have a challenge on your hands here, starting at the back.
Yeah, we were actually wondering what Brands Hatch will be like the other way around. I think it will be interesting, but no. Yeah, we have to start from the back of the grid today, and we will try to make the best. Christian will start, and yeah, let's see. It's hard to overtake here, we know it. But yeah, we'll push hard and see where we end up.
Now, if there was an opportunity to overtake, where would it be here at Brands Hatch?
I think there is no corner in any track where you cannot overtake.
Okay, thank you. Good luck. Thanks.
This could be a long hour then for the Lamborghini team. A rather disgruntled Mirko Bortolotti. The car should have been fifth on the grid and is now at the back because of this infringement of the pit lane regulation yesterday during the qualifying session. Well, if anybody can make up ground, it is Mirko Bortolotti. He'll do the second stint, but of course you can possibly do it on the pit stops, and if you're really brave and bold, you can prise open a door.
I mean, the one thing I liked about that interview was that Mirko was very positive when he said there's no racetrack, no corner where you can't overtake, and that's a very positive view from the position at the very back of the grid, having been knocked back.
Let's just have a walk down the grid. Dries Van Tor and Stijn Schothorst on the front row. Michael Meadows, blue and white Mercedes, alongside Alex Riberas, Audi number 1 on the second row. The third row, you've got the Peter Schothorst Audi, and alongside is Nico Bastien in the Mercedes. Row 4, Stuart Leonard, British driver, in the grey and yellow Audi, and alongside is the quicker of the Lexuses is Norbert Siedler at the wheel of 114. Nicolas Jamin in the Mercedes is alongside Christian Kleen in the second Lexus. Then the green Lamborghini, Ezequiel Perez Companc will go first, and Andrew Watson in the sole BMW on the grid lines up alongside. Then you've got the white fronted Audi of Simon Gachet, and alongside him is Loris Hezemans in number 82, the green Lamborghini. Look behind them, you'll see the white Bentley of Josh Cagill. The green and blue Ferrari alongside at the back of the shot on the right as you look at the screen is started by Piti Bieron-Bahti. Then you've got Ian Loggie's green and white Bentley and Neil Stevenart Audi alongside. In the back row is the number 35 Mercedes of Vladimir Avtuev, and alongside will be Christian Engelhardt in the Lamborghini. We've had the 1 minute board shown on the grid, so everybody off the grid now. The engines fire up, the SRO officials clear the grid at the front. Green flag in hand stands the race director, Alain Aron, and when everybody's off the grid, he will give the signal for everybody to be released, and we'll get this sole formation lap underway. Everybody is ready trackside, everybody is ready in the pit lane. There's little you can do in terms of sprint compared to endurance cup rounds, but the pressure is on at those pit stops, because if you get the procedure wrong, if you get the timing wrong, then you can certainly influence it the wrong way. 15 seconds to go.
You asked me the question, who did I think was going to win? I think Dries Van Tor will lead up to his pit stop. There is a lot of pressure, a lot of expectation from the WRT Audi team and from race fans here for Will Stevens when he gets into that number number 2 WRT Audi, that he has to continue the work that has been carried out by Dries van Voort, because the car alongside the Attempter Racing 66 Audi of Stijn Schothorst, Kelvin van der Linde, we know those two drivers, they won the race in Zolder. They did a strong job together, and that's going to be a big competition within the two WRT Audi teams. But do not discount the 88 Mercedes-Benz. And looking further back, well, it looks awfully big Audi. Everywhere you look, it's Audi, Audi, Audi. They have got a car really is hooked up to the circuit this weekend.
I mean, the one exception is potentially Michael Meadows, home hero, and Raffaele Marciello, who was very, very impressive yesterday in qualifying. He didn't actually get pole in the end, but it was a very, very good effort by Raffaele. So let's have a quick look at the grid then. We've seen the cars, just to remind you who starts. Pole position is Dries van Voort, Stijn Schothorst is alongside. Row 2 is Michael Meadows, and then alongside will be Alex Riberas, Christopher Mies to take over, another strong car. Third row, it is Peter Schothorst and Nico Bastien heading the Silver Cup alongside. Then Stuart Leonard will start 7th on the grid, and Norbert Siedler for company ahead of the Mercedes of Nicolas Jamin. 9th and 10th on the grid is Christian Klein in the second Lexus. Ezequiel Perez Companc comes next. Andrew Watson, the Northern Irishman, alongside. Then it's Timon Gachet and Loris Hezemans in a car shared with a very, very fast front Pereira. The Audi, though, has Christopher Hassler as the second driver, so that should make progress late race as well. Then you've got Josh Cahill and Aaron Taylor-Smith. Cahill starts, as does Piti Piron-Bahti alongside. Then it's Ian Loggie's Bentley and Neil Stevenart with Marcus Winkelhock for company. Back row is Vladimir Atuev and Christian Engelhardt, who is going to be the one to watch over the opening corners to see what progress he can make.
He's going to have to be careful because the field will bunch up and will slow down a lot in the paddock will bend. So Christian Engelhardt will be hard on it when the field ahead is hard on the brakes. So being at the tail of a field, take your opportunities. And some circuits, you can do the brave thing and take the long way around the outside, but there's not a lot of space on the outside anywhere at Brands Hatch. And if a car's running out to the edge of the racetrack, you need to be on your toes to make sure you don't get involved in a bit of contact.
So here is the view from the back of the grid. Cars everywhere ahead. Christian Engelhardt's going to have to be bold to get through the traffic, but cautious that he doesn't get involved in anybody else's incident. Down towards clearways they come then, the drivers, and they are briefed, of course, every weekend to do this properly, get into the side-by-side Noah's Ark 2x2 formation. They have to go across the white lines. You can't be jutting outside by side. Penalties could come that way. We saw it happen quite a bit last year. It's up to the front row drivers of Dries van Voort and Stijn Schothorst then to control the pace. The lights go green. Race 1 for the Blancpain GT Series Sprint Cup at Brands Hatch is go, and a very good start by van Voort, a slow start by Stijn Schothorst in the contrast as they go into paddock for the first time. It's going to be Audis 1 and 2. Michael Meadows drops back a little bit in the pack as well. What about Engelhardt? He's gained one spot going up through paddock. They round Druids for the first time. Schothorst trying to retaliate then as they come now through Druids, but Dries van Voort it is who leads the way. This is Michael Meadows' view. Started third and he's down in 4th place. Alex Riberas was on his toes in the number 1 Audi, and he's managed to move up the order.
Yeah, good move by Riberas. The Lamborghini bang over. Now look at Christian Engelhardt off the racetrack. I mean, well, he didn't gain anything, so there shouldn't be any penalties, but obviously pushing very hard, very early to try and make up ground.
He lost out, didn't he? I think he actually lost places by the rally cross, and it was Hezemans going on the grass ahead. And there we've got already off the road 35 from the back of the grid, Vladimir Atuev. That's up at Druids, and it's near the edge of the road, and I fear this might well be an early interruption to the race. Let's see as the cars accelerate then down through Hawthorns, then Westfield. This is the Dingle Dell approach up towards Sheen Curve. The safety car boards fly. The safety cars going onto the circuit. The race is going to be neutralised at the end of lap 1. They can race until they get to the boards. Van Voort it is who leads the way. We're still under the green. Now the screen's changed to safety car and yellow flags, and the message will get through to the drivers. Safety car is on track. Hold your position.
Well, the car up at the Mercedes up at Druids back into the gravel, so they need to get a recovery vehicle to pull that away. There no damage to the car from what we could see, no damage to the tire bales behind the gravel trap. It'll take maybe a couple of laps for that car to be removed safely. They'll let the field of cars go through. The recovery vehicle then go back out on track and remove that car as you go back on board. Christian Engelhardt came through in what is in effect last place, because 20th place is the Mercedes up in the gravel, so it is Christian Engelhardt who tried to make up ground, got it all wrong coming through Graham Hill Bend, but way wide on the outside and bounced heavily. In fact, Engelhardt has made up an extra position on that opening lap. He's now in, should be in 18th. He is in 18th place.
Bit of confusion for Ian Loggie, and also that the Lamborghini with him. Yes, it is, as to who should be where. Because look, they're side by side up at Druids. They were side by side over the line. Neither driver quite sure who should be ahead, and therefore not wanting to take the place and fear of penalties. I think the teams are going to be talking to race control to say, right, who should be ahead? And it should be Ezequiel Perez Companc ahead of Ian Logie, ahead of Christian Engelhardt. So Lamborghini, Bentley, Lamborghini should be the order over the timing line. Right, so safety car on track, and I mean, it really is a miserable weekend, sadly, for this Mercedes crew, because we had the accident in free practice 1, and then very early out of the race come this opener. Replay of the start. Just talk us through this, John.
Okay, front row of the grid, side by side, waiting for the green light to go out. Once the green light goes out, the drivers have been told they are allowed to accelerate beyond the 80 kilometers per hour, but Dries van Thor got it absolutely perfectly. Michael Meadows in the Mercedes was just marginally ahead coming into paddock, but the Ribeiras Audi seemed to manage to find space on the outside. Tricky to do. Look at the way Dries van Thor shuts off the entry in. So Shorthouse had to back out of it. But there was contact. We don't know whether that was contact or just somebody losing it. Watch now the tail of the field on the outside. The Bentley absolutely slams into the side of the 63 Lamborghini. Not intended, just happened to be on the outside, trying to make up ground, and that's the penalty. If you put yourself there, then watch on board. Here we see Christian Engelhardt now moves out. Oh, it was actually the Bentley he was passing was alongside him. We were looking at the second of the two Parker Bentleys. So that was a disappointment for Engelhardt. Not only did he go off track and lose position, but he got a load of rubber, muck and whatever would have been off. And he was well off. He wasn't just on that little bit of runoff that is at the bottom of Graham Hill Bend.
And that's the problem, isn't it? You've got to make up places, you've got to get stuck in, but then you're obviously in jeopardy.
Yeah, you've got to make your chances, not wait for them to be offered up. Engelhardt was trying to do that. He's got the car and he's got the ability within himself to do all that. But of course, very tight round Graham Hill Bend exit.
So the safety car stays out, still recovering at Druids. And let's have a look at the start from on board with Christian Engelhardt. We, of course, saw him on the formation lap at the back of the grid. This is coming out of Clark Curve, and the lights are about to go green, John.
So he's looking for a gap. He actually is slightly out of position, but the field gets underway cleanly all the way up at Paddock Hill Bend, gets past the Audi on the inside, consolidates, looks to move up the inside on the Mercedes. You can see the car that went off. So there was a bit of a pinch. The Bentley came from right to left. Ferrari in the middle. I think it was maybe the Ferrari of Baron Bacti that might have come into contact with the 35 Mercedes. But just three wide coming out of Paddock Hill Bend up towards Druid. It's a very tense moment. Now Engelhardt shuffled sideways by the sister Bentley. That was the 32 car. And all of a sudden you're back to basically where you started before the lights went out.
It's like snakes and ladders, isn't it? You build up, then you slide down again. It was Ian Loggie's Bentley that was the aggressor. Safety car in at the end of this lap. So the good thing, in a sense, for Engelhardt is that, of course, the pack has bunched up again. So that means that he can make some more places, perhaps more easily. The bad news for Christian Engelhardt is that the pack has all bunched up again, and that means he's got cars around him again, and he's in jeopardy. Safety cars breed safety cars and all that.
Yes, and obviously he knows that he needs to make progress as quickly as possible. But as you point out, the difference is that there's a single line that going off the grid 2 by 2. The grid was maybe up, in fact, 3 wide going up into Paddock Hill Bend and up into Druid. So it is slightly easier for Christian Engelhardt to start to pick off the cars that are directly ahead of him. You've got Callum Logie, and then you've got the 19 Lamborghini of Perez Companc. But that'll not be an easy car to pass, identical to the 63 car that Christian Engelhardt is in.
Now Vladimir Aftoev is out of the gravel and is storming round trying to catch up to the Crocodile. So he's obviously a lap down, but he's been allowed to continue in the race. But he's at Druids and the leaders here are at Stirling, so he's going to be in no man's land for a while yet. As the safety car sprints away, it will peel in. The yellow flags will be withdrawn and replaced with the green flag. There is Aftoev, who's absolutely storming to try and catch up to the queue of cars that you're about to see here coming down through clearways then at the end of lap 3. We're ready to go racing. The order is Dries van Tor ahead of Steins Cockhouse. Ribeiras is 3rd, Michael Meadows is 4th. In 5th place is Nico Bastien. In 6th it is Peter Schotthorst as the green flag is ready on the start line. You can't overtake until you get to the timing line, which is now. We go racing and Van Tor leads by half a second as he storms into paddock. Schotthorst is 2nd, Ribeiras 3rd, Meadows 4th, 5th is Bastien, 6th is Peter Schotthorst. Round paddock and now the climb up towards Druids, but Dries van Tor is on a mission to try and get away here.
Yes, and he had all the opportunities in his favour. He was able to wait and go when he wanted to do so, and did that very effectively. Just coming into clearways then through Clark Curve, and has got the advantage again, that clear air. But the 66 Audi is not letting the number 2 Audi get away that quickly. So the gap between the two cars, in fact the gap between the first three, but Riberas and the third of those 3 Audis, these 3 cars are going to have a big race amongst themselves. It's Nico Bastian in the 5th car behind Michael Meadows in the 2nd of the 2 Mercedes, looking to come up and get alongside down into Hawthorne's corner. Michael Meadows under pressure from the sister Mercedes.
And remember that Nico Bastian leads the Silver Cup. It's a new class introduced into Blancpain GT Series races for this year for the combination of 2 young gun drivers. As up through Sheen Curve they come then. We're working lap 4. Remember that safety car period eats into the hour. So we've got 52 minutes and change on the clock, and the battle is on for 4th and 5th. The 2 Mercedes running as one. So it's Audi 1, 2, 3, Mercedes 4, 5. And Audi 6, they drop down through clearways now into Clark Curve. Vanthorpe trying to stretch the advantage over Stones Cockroach in 2nd place, the car that he shares with Kelvin van der Linde. Up past the pits then, over the timing line, the gap was half a second at the restart. The gap is now 8/10 at the end of lap 4. Fastest lap done by Dries van Tor as Will Stevens watches on in the pit bunker. Raffaele Marciello watches Michael Meadows keep at bay Nico Bastian, 4th.
Yeah, absolutely. Nico Bastian is the driver really of the leading group that is probably looking most like he can make a manoeuvre, maybe try and put himself up into 4th place, demote Michael Meadows. That's why there was slight concern on the face of Marcello Raffaele. He was aware that the pace of the 90 Mercedes of Bastian is marginally quicker. You can see coming into Surtees that he's able to tuck the nose of the car in slightly tighter than we saw from Michael Meadows. Look at the where Engelhardt up to 16th place. Look at the back, he's probably made up a position as he came into Surtees.
Yeah, I think he's 15th, isn't he? And Perez Companc ahead has also got past Josh Cahill. Let's have a look. Well, they're side by side. On the outside is the Lamborghini. Brave stuff, and Christian Engelhardt swoops around the outside.
Well, we saw an incident at that very part of the racetrack in the GT4 where a car collided, put another one off the track into the barriers at the end of Hawthorne Corner. That was a brave move by Christian Engelhardt, but committed and well executed. And both drivers gave respect, gave enough working room to enable them to both get through cleanly.
And Gottfried Grasser approves, but Christian Engelhardt, brave stuff, that round the outside, putting him up into 15th place. You've got Atuev on his own playing catch-up, doing purple sectors because he's got no traffic around him. But here is Mirko Bortolotti now. It's Christian Engelhardt, I should say. He comes up over the line. Is it every man for himself at Grasser, or would they consider telling Compact to let Engelhardt by?
Be interesting thought. I mean, ordinarily I would assume you would, if you're in the place of Perez Compact, that he would see Engelhardt coming and might automatically let the quicker of the 2 cars, because Engelhardt is the quicker of the 2 drivers, let it go, rather than having it as a team play, a deliberate let him pass. But again, Nico Bastian really given Michael Meadows a workout into Surtees, and clearly Bastian is able to tuck the nose in that little bit neater in the apex, but again coming down this straight. Top speed 240 kilometers per hour. Whoa! Bastian just getting a little bit loose, under braking, is downshifting into Hawthorne's Bend.
So Michael Meadows bounces through Westfield, hanging on to 4th place, 3.5 seconds back though now from the race leader. So Michael Meadows delaying himself by having to defend like this. He can't really concentrate exclusively on the Audi flotilla up the road ahead. So you've got Engelhardt running in 15th place, and there's more to come out of that Lamborghini. This is Michael Meadows' view then. But it's the mirrors that he's been focusing on, because right there behind him is Nico Bastian. In 6th place, look, is Peter Skokos. Then 7th is Stuart Leonard. 8th is Norbert Siedler. 9th, Nicolas Jamin. And in 10th spot is Christian Kleen, as you look at the order on the graphic on the screen.
Interestingly, the gap between 1st and 2nd has come back from 1.2 just to 1 second. So Scott Shorthorse is actually, at the minute, marginally quicker on this, but they're going to the 7th lap, than race leader Dries van Voort. Dries van Voort set the fastest first sector on his previous lap, but as Shorthorse had set fastest second sector, and in fact the fastest of all his laps on that 6th lap.
So Dries van Tor leads the way. Stein Skotthorst is 2nd, and their 3rd is Alex Riberas. Gap back 4th and 5th. Michael Meadows, with Brands Hatch knowledge greater than that of Nico Bastian. Michael has raced here in single-seaters, in Formula BMW, for example, in British GT, in his days in a Ferrari, in Carrera Cup GB, double champion in Porsches, and now in Blancpain GT Series races. There's Nico Bastian in 5th spot, who is really starting this year to prove how good he is. He's a race winner in Blancpain GT Series Asia. He's always been very good round the Nordschleife in the VLN, for example, but now proving on a rather more international stage just what he's capable of.
But just watching on this lap, I think Michael Meadows now is beginning to feel, I've got Bastian in control. He's had probably the best previous 3 laps, but not sufficiently good to get ahead of the 88 Mercedes. And I think the switch is now probably not likely to happen. It may come in a pit stop. That's going to be the best opportunity for both drivers and car combinations.
Now there, look, still third of the Lamborghini train is Christian Engelhardt. He still has not been able to get past. So I pose that question to John about team orders. If there are any, they're not being deployed yet. Hezemans is ahead of Perez Compact, and then it is Engelhardt. And actually, in terms of pace over the weekend, they're all in the reverse order, aren't they?
Yes, they are. But Engelhardt clearly is the quicker of the 3 drivers that we're looking at. And Loris Hezemans, the young Belgian Dutchman, who is in the lead of these 3 Lamborghinis. Focus will be purely on what he's doing in the car. Perez Compact maybe has a little bit more spatial awareness of what's going on around him. And Christian Engelhardt will be wondering, well, what are these 2 guys ahead of me? Have they not got the message? What do they not understand about an orange bonnet on a Lamborghini? It indicates I'm the quicker of the 3 cars. Let me through.
Gottfried Grasser has to juggle all of this because he wants the best results possible. He might have paying customers to factor into all of this as well, but clearly Engelhardt's got the pace. But for as long as he's stuck there, this is hurting the overall result because he's dropping away from the train of cars ahead.
Indeed, and what he wants to try and do is clear these 2 fellow Lamborghinis to get onto the gearbox of the rear wing of Andrew Watson in 12th place in the single BMW in this race. And he's stalled out the performance of, oh, there is the BMW run way, way wide as it comes out of Sterling's back to this leading group. 114, Norbert Siedler and Lexus. Lexus showing very well here at Brands Hatch this weekend.
So the leaders come storming over the line. The gap is a second still between Vanthor and Scott. Riveras is third. Now what about the Mercedes? That last lap was a 25.6. Meadows' pace actually now, having, as you say, sorted out Bastian, is not that dissimilar from the Audis ahead. He's fractionally slower, but only fractionally as they turn their way now up through Druids. There is Stuart Leonard in 7th, Norbert Siedler behind him in 8th spot. 9th currently is Jamin, and 10th is Christian Kleen in the Lexus. We are on lap 9, and we are looking at, 10 minutes before the pit window opens.
And that really, I suspect, is where everybody's going to be thinking, well, we know it's difficult to overtake at Brands Hatch. We will put ourselves into the best possible position, and that means when you come into your pit box, you've got to stop precisely, stop square with the pit, and follow procedure. The other thing that in sprint, Blancpain sprint, every car has got an onboard camera which looks back at the driver. We don't get those pictures. Those are into the race stewards, race director's office, so they can see what's going on within the cockpit as the cars now can filter their way up through Sheen Curve and into Sterling's Bend.
That first lap skirmish at turn 3, no further action. Engelhardt has gained 1 place. Look, he's ahead now, Perez Compact. And also I was going to mention that number 90, Nico Bastian, has been warned about track limits at turn 3. Now this is the move. Engelhardt trying to sort out the sister car of Perez Compact up the road ahead of him. Comes out of Druids, they're side by side. In fact, Perez Compact gets ahead of Hezemans and Engelhardt gets through as well.
Yeah, I think that may have been a message clearly from Grasser Racing to say to Loris Hezemans, look, these 2 drivers behind you were much quicker. Again, looking on board from Christian Engelhardt, quicker driver than Perez Compact. Compact slightly makes an error coming under braking. That gives an opportunity for Engelhardt to get down the inside. He does. Again, maybe you might call that a tactical maneuver by the young Argentinian in the number 19, but job is done. That's part of being in a team. You have to work with a team. You're not fighting your own team.
It was the, whatever it was, of least resistance, wasn't it, from Compact? He didn't put up much of a fight.
No, he looked like he'd made an error coming into Druids. Whether that then compounded what was inevitably going to happen.
Well, he did. Job done. So 13th now is Christian Engelhardt, but there's still a lot more work to do. They need a safety car to bring them really close to the leaders because they've lost the best part of 15 seconds while being mired in the traffic. We are on lap 10. This is race 1 of 2 at Brands Hatch for the Blancpain GT Series Sprint Cup, and it is led by Dries Vanthor, who has done the fastest lap of the race. Last time through at 1:25.2, stretching the margin back up to 1.3 seconds. There is Michael Meadows 4th, Nico Bastian 5th, leading the Silver Cup, coming down through Clark Curve now. Up over the timing line goes the race leader, and the gap is up to 1.8 seconds. So that lap around, Stein Schonkhorst loses a lot of time.
Indeed, and Dries Vanthor now, he's in this rhythm. He's just set the fastest race lap. He's still got clear air ahead of him. He can do whatever he likes, wherever he wants to place the car. He needs to get the maximum distance he can between himself and the 66 attempt to Audi, because when the pit stops come, we have seen in the past, and unfortunately for Dries van Voor, in the pit stop when he took over in Zolder, he made a very fundamental error, and obviously moved on, learned from that. Nevertheless, there will still be, I suspect, those 4 cones that were demarcating the end of the pit box. They may be put back out in place. Well, in fact, they're in an echelon position, so it will be an easier exit. So rather than having to look over the front of the car to see where those marker cones were, as we go back to this battle for 4th place, Nico Bastian seemingly has conceded to Michael Meadows, who really didn't have to resist, but just had to ensure that he wasn't being forced by the pressure of the 90 Mercedes.
I was just wondering whether that gap between 3rd and 4th was coming down at all. To the eye, it looked a little bit less. And yes, in the middle sector, Michael Meadows fractionally faster, but he's still got a bit of work to do to get right onto the back. And Riveras has fallen away now in 3rd place, hasn't he? Part of that Monza Endurance Cup winning crew. Michael Meadows will give way to Raffaele Marciello, Nico Bastian to give way to rookie Jack Manchester as they come over the timing line. So Vantor to Scott Horse now. Stein Scott Horse 2.2 seconds, 1st and 2nd.
Yeah, I mean, clearly, that isn't just simply that Dries van Voor is the quicker of the 2 drivers. Whichever way the individual drivers have set up their cars, it looks to me like Dries van Voor, number 2 Audi, is working the balance of the car. They're using the tyre more productively. That's where the time's coming from. It isn't about suddenly Dries van Voor has found 0.2 of a second per lap because he's that much quicker.
Now Engelhart, 13th, catching Andrew Watson. The last lap for the Lamborghini was 9/10 quicker than the last lap of the BMW, and there they are. Look, the gap is coming down and down and down. Christian Engelhart charging along behind the Bas Linders Ram 3-wide technology entered. BMW M6 there, dropping away as Perez compact behind. He's now down in 14th place. 15th is Hezemans. 16th is the Bentley of Josh Cagle. But Andrew Watson's going to be under attack any moment.
He will be. But what I'm wondering about, what will Grasso Racing do? Will they bring in Christian Engelhart at the earliest opportunity, which will be in just literally over 5 minutes, put Mirko Bortolotti into that car, get out of sequence possibly with some of the field around him, and allow Bortolotti to try and use that opportunity, the early pit stop, maybe make the undercut and get some more track position.
Yeah, do that early. You never know what the safety car might make an appearance if we have a drama, and the whole complexion of the race could change. So quick thinking, clever pit strategy might be to the good effect here for Grasso Racing Team, but you're right, get him out of the traffic, and then perhaps when Bortolotti is behind the wheel, clear track space and try and gain positions that way. Andrew Watson under attack then. The gap between them at the end of the previous lap was a second. Let's see what it is now as they come across the line. It's half a second, so Engelhart is closing all the time as they work their way through paddock. Lots of the guests enjoying GT racing from a different vantage point in the paddock, as their Engelhart has no time to think about lunch. He's busy, busy, busy at Druids.
Yes, I mean, the Lamborghini, the 63 of Christian Engelhart, is clearly, we know, a quicker car, and the BMW runs very wide, and they're struggling for grip coming through Graham Hill Bend. That will give Engelhart a little bit more momentum coming up into Stirling. He's probably not close enough to think about trying to slip up the inside, but Andrew Watson in the BMW clearly hasn't got a lot more left in the grip tank in the BMW.
Loris Hezemans being warned about track limits at Graham Hill Bend at turn 3. He was warned repeatedly yesterday as well, kept running wide there. That was the corner where Engelhart ran off the road on the very first lap and he got a bit of a squeeze. The leaders go through then. Dries van Voor is 2.3 seconds ahead of Stein Scott Horse now. 3rd is Alex Riveras. In 4th place, Michael Meadows. 5th, Nico Bastian, who leads the Silver Cup. And in Pro-Am, it's Piti Bieron-Bahti, 17th overall, leading the category in the Ferrari from Ian Logie and Callum McLeod. And then it's Neil Stevenard and Marcus Winkelhock running 3rd in Pro-Am, 19th place overall. And the pit window is, what, really 2 laps or so away now?
Yes, so looking down the pit lane, there isn't any indication of anybody going to make that very early or the earliest opportunity pit stop. They've still got another lap and a bit to go. But I would have thought you'd have seen some kind of movement, but nothing. There is Christian Engelhart still behind Andrew Watson in the BMW, running in 13th place, 12th for the BMW. Up into Druids, gets the BMW in, lets the car run out on the exit of the corner. That's pretty much the bog standard, as you call it, line for Druids. Lamborghini closes up marginally under braking and coming in and through Graham Hill Bend. 1 lap ago, he was, I thought, thinking about having a look up the inside. The thing, what Andrew Watson can do if he wants to foil Christian Engelhart's progress is just actually slow down almost more than you really need to force Engelhart, as we ride on board, this is the onboard camera on the 63 Lamborghini, to frustrate, maybe to force him to try and do things which normally you wouldn't expect.
You made a point last year about how little Mirko Bortolotti blinks. Christian Engelhardt going the same way there. Not a blink out of him. He's focused on the back of Andrew Watson's BMW up the road. That is the focus of attention. He's chipping away. Still can't think about a pit stop just yet. It'll be at least one more lap. He comes now through Sterling's, where you've got this high curve on the outside. The BMW runs up more of it than does the Lamborghini. The leaders go through, and the gap is now 3 seconds. It's going to be fascinating, though, in the second stint, isn't it, really, to see what kind of pace Will Stevens can do relative to those around him in the leading car.
Well, I mean, Will Stevens will be under the cosh, because it'll be Kevin van der Linde getting into the 66 attempt to racing Audi, and one-on-one, van der Linde or Will Stevens, who's the better, who's the quicker? It's a very close call. All right, there's 3.1 seconds. In a pit stop that could extend, it could reduce. Nevertheless, for Will Stevens, assuming he'll be behind the race leading car, he's got a big responsibility.
But also factor in third, Alex Riveras. Now he's 6.7 seconds back. Christopher Mies will take over, and he is very quick. And Michael Meadows, 8 seconds adrift to give way to Raffaele Marciello. Second stint is going to be fascinating. It really is. Jack Manchester, with all due deference to him, is much less experienced in this car, in this type of racing, in racing in general. So he might not be able to live up there. Whereas here, Christian Engelhardt is 1 minute and 20 seconds off the pit window opening. He'll have to get one more lap in, I would have thought. But Andrew Watson is now really under pressure. The BMW, and it's good to see that car going more competitively come the racing than it did at the start of the weekend in free practice.
It did not look a great car to drive, and Andrew Watson was, you could see the struggle that he had, and the Lamborghini Perez compact runs wide.
Did that there yesterday, didn't he?
He didn't. He managed to stay on the grass this time, where he managed to get the gravel and look down into the clearways. Not an easy place to pass. Again, if you're going to make that pass, you've got to be square alongside the car. Did he lose momentum as a consequence coming on to main straight here, looking to come up with the Panicle Bend, showing the nose of the Lamborghini, trying to force the concentration of Andrew Watson to focus what's happening behind, not what's happening before. So up the hill, and again comfortably ahead of the Lamborghini. But there, runs wide on the exit. The back end just momentarily got away. The Lamborghini's got the opportunity, but the BMW is a physically large car and was able to consolidate, but now under pressure. Look for a pass up into Surtees, goes the one way, now cut back and do the undercut on the exit. That's the best you can think that Bortolotti, but the opportunity wasn't there, but comes out to the corner marginally quicker, now accelerates, but it's going to be easy for the BMW to hold that inside line all the way down the straight into Hawthorns.
Andrew Watson doing a great job of defending, isn't he? Christian Engelhardt trying everything, but Andrew Watson goes a little bit wide now. Engelhardt one side, then the other. Andrew Watson is under pressure, but he's doing a great job of defending, and Engelhardt getting a bit more frustrated now. Tight line out of Westfield. Is he up the inside? Has he got the ground? Yes! Through he goes. Christian Engelhardt goes through and into the pits early. Comes the race leader, Dries van Toor, to give way right at the start of the window to Will Stevens.
That was unexpected. The race leader, I thought, may have stayed out that little bit longer, but they've decided to bring in Dries van Toor. But we just witnessed a real bit of motor racing between Andrew Watson having to defend and Christian Engelhardt doing everything that he could possibly do with the Lamborghini, and have finally made that pass down through Dingle. In fact, that car 63 has also come in. So we're seeing the best part of almost half the field now making pit stops at the earliest opportunity.
Yeah, Andrew Watson in as
Good
well.
Stop.
So
Good
that's
stop.
Will Stevens away, but I'm surprised that they brought Van Toor in so early. Stuart Leonard's car is in the background. Now let's see what a Will Stevens lap is going to be like relative to Raffaele Marciello, who's taken over there from Michael Meadows. You see Pitty-Beer on Bachty's Ferrari in to give way to Carlo Van Dam. As away now goes Frederic Verviche, the pole sitter for race 2 in the grey and yellow Audi.
And he's behind the Mercedes.
Yeah, indeed, as he was before the stop, so that car doesn't lose. Track position is maintained. He's probably actually closer to the Mercedes because that would have dropped a long way back earlier. And you've got Mirko Bortolotti then in for Engelhardt, blasting out of the pit lane as well. So down towards clearways. It will be now Stones Cockcroft in the lead of the race. There he is. This is the car that won race 2 at Zolder and comes through into the pit lane to give way now to Kelvin van der Linde. So the order will shuffle as all these pit stops cycle through.
Yeah, Tempter Racing 66 Audi. Once the number 1 car made its pit stop, yes, the number 2 car, beg your pardon, made its pit stop, then they were going to be forced to do the same thing. I know that you can think what would happen if a safety car came out. Look, you can only roll the dice so much. You've got to go with what are the constants, and that was a dead cert. There is Will Stevens coming through the exit of Sheen Corner into Stirling's Bend, and it's a fairly, I would say, cautious opening lap. So he wants to get a feel for the car, a feel for the tyres. There's the second place. Can this car get in, through and out? It looks like it's moving down the pit lane as Will Stevens comes on the racetrack. So Will Stevens has maintained the advantage. And the 66 Attempter racing car will come out in second place with the number 1, I think, coming out directly behind it.
That's right. So Christopher Mies then goes through, and Raffaele Marciello is going to be 4th. The one that's gained, I reckon, is 17 Audi, because now Fred Verviche will be up into 5th place. So number 90 Mercedes drops back after Nico Bastian's good first stint. Now we need to have a look at the gaps between them, which we'll get next time through. And the Lamborghinis just get themselves back in the original order. Bortolotti ahead of Andrea Caldarelli there.
Yeah, and that was important because Andrea Caldarelli is, an outstanding driver, and would have been a bigger issue, if you like, for Mirko Bortolotti to find a way around. But there is the 90 Mercedes, Nico Bastian staying out, continuing using maximum track time before he hands over to Jack Manchester. Gap between himself and 55 Schoenhorst is 1.7 seconds.
They've yet to stop, so this on the road is the top 2. Nico Bastian versus Peter Schoenhorst. Brother Stein has already given way to Kelvin van der Linde. This is the car that Pierre Katherine will take over. Up towards Druids they go. Nicolas Jamin is in for Felix Serrales. Simon Gachet is in for Christopher Hausler. He's had a good stint, actually, Gachet. Modest, but very competitive pace for a relative rookie. And there on the road and on the curb is the second place, Peter Schoenhorst. Now, Frederic Verviche has done the absolute best of anybody in the second sector. Number 17 Audi is absolutely flying.
He is indeed, and I have to say, why are we surprised? Did an outstanding lap in qualifying for race 2 this afternoon. Somebody you kind of overlook, and you look at racing drivers, you think, that guy looks like a racing, but Fred Verviche looks like an accountant. He looks just a totally normal man, but in and out, absolutely mighty. 1 minute 25.27, fractionally slower than the fastest lap of the race earlier in the event by Dries van Voor.
And I should point out that no accountants were hurt in the making of that analogy. 55 through then. This is Peter Schoenhorst running in second spot for the moment, but he's got to make a pit stop. And the timing screen is being lit up not only by Verviche, but also by Raffaele Marciello.
No surprise there either. Marciello running behind the number 1 Audi, 2.2 seconds. Raffaele Marciello, we know, is racer through and through.
Oh yeah, is he ever. And he is also, like Nico Bastian, a winner in Blancpain GT Series Asia this season. Right, so some staying out for as long as they can within the window. And up front in has come Peter Schoenhorst. So Nico Bastian going to the end of the window. That is Schoenhorst out and Pierre Katherine in. Tyres about to be changed. As 66 then, Kelvin van der Linde chases sideways off the curb, chases after Will Stevens. Now, Will Stevens' last lap was a 27, van der Linde a 1:30, much slower.
Well, I don't know, because the number 1 Audi also did a 31, so whether those two cars somehow or other found themselves on the racetrack and tripped over, but it's very strange, as now Kelvin van der Linde does the fastest race lap at 1:25.092, recovered from whatever at the time lost. The gap between van der Linde in 3rd place, Will Stevens leading, down to 4.1 seconds. Raffaele Marciello getting very wide in the exit, coming out of Panicle Bend, recovers, moves on. Fred Verviche is chasing him. That might just keep Marciello a little bit more honest, because he knows that Fred Verviche in the yellow topped Audi took that pole position on Saturday afternoon and is going to hunt down the 88 Mercedes.
So in real terms, Will Stevens is the race leader by 4 seconds from Kelvin van der Linde, who last time was 1.3 seconds quicker. So the gap's coming down between the two leading Audis. In 3rd place is Christopher Mies, who's also lapping quicker than Will Stevens, and Raffaele Marciello's last lap was quicker than the last lap of Will Stevens. So it's concertinaing. Now, was that one lap a blip by Stevens, or is that his natural pace? We don't yet know until we get the next lap time through. But if you look at sectors, he's 3/10 slower than the two behind him in the first sector alone. So the gap is coming down.
Yes, there was that glitch where the number 1 and the number 66 Audis but did 1:31.31. That was Christopher Mies and Kelvin. We never saw, or we have no idea what was the reason for that glitch, but now they've separated, they're running at their natural race pace. Van der Linde having just set the fastest lap in the race. As we look at Fred Verviche pursuing the Mercedes-Benz gap, really hasn't changed over the last lap or so. in visual terms, in time terms, well, let's have a look at the times here. The gap is, in terms of time, 1.1 seconds.
And Will Stevens then is 3.1 seconds up the road over Kelvin van der Linde, who is doing purple sectors. This is Nico Bastian going to the end of the window. It's still open, and I think I'm right in saying that he's about the only one that's not stopped yet. Yeah, this is the one car that has not yet pitted, and it's going to have to be soon.
Yes, we've got just a minute and a half remaining. So it would be now, he's got to come into the pits now, because I think it would be very marginal to get into the pit lane before the 10-minute window was shut. It would be shut at the crossing of that line. So the team have made the judgment, they've made the calculation. Nico Bastian has done all that he can do. The car will be handed over to Jack Manchester. Interestingly, there's about, I put it in inches, 6 inches difference in height. Yet Jack Manchester can sort of wrap himself around like a python, getting into the wheel, the steering column, the seat, the belts. How they did the belts, I don't know. That's very weird. But anyway, something maybe about the different body lengths.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Supple young bones as well. They're more malleable. This is the race leader. Will Stevens then up towards the line, but have a look behind him because the second Audi is the real chaser. Jack Manchester down the pit lane. He'll blend back in as through goes Stevens, through goes van der Linde. The gap is 2.2 seconds. That lap is 0.8 quicker by the South African than the Brit.
It certainly was. Another very, very quick lap, and Christopher Mies likewise just on the 25.1. In the third place, he is fastest third sector. So he's not given up the pursuit of 66. The gap between first and second, 2.2 seconds. Gap between second and third, 3.8 seconds. And then you got the first of the Mercedes in, I beg your pardon, the Mercedes is in fifth place. You got, well, they were watching what's happened to the 90 Mercedes, it's falling down through the field. So it is Marcello in fourth place, further 9 seconds back.
Yeah, then Fred Verviche is there behind him. Fastest lap of the race, still that from Kelvin van der Linde of a few laps back, so he might be a relative rookie to Brands Hatch, but it's not slowing him down at all. Sector 1, Will Stevens responds a little bit. He's fractionally faster than is Kelvin van der Linde, but that gap has come down from over 4 seconds to 2.2. Christopher Mies still hustling on in third spot as well. The Emil Frey Racing guests are watching what's going on for the Lexus pair. And looking at the wine as well as they're enjoying the sunshine and the hospitality on the outside of Paddock Hill Bend. Verviche, meantime, concentrating on the back of the Mercedes.
And he's closing up, certainly in the middle sector, sector 2 of Brands Hatch. It looks to me like Fred Verviche has got a little bit of extra pace over the number 88 Mercedes-Benz. Comes down into clearways, swings through, car runs way out to the edge of the racetrack, then you let it come back naturally to take Clark Curve. And then onto this, what is called a straight, but it is actually a very shallow curve. Very cambered, you don't get it on TV so much. You can't see Paddock Hill Bend as you make your way up the hill, and then all of a sudden there is your apex.
Through they turn, and now towards Druids goes number 17 Fred Verviche. The lead gap down again to 1.5 seconds, so Kelvin van der Linde with 25 minutes give or take still to go. He's doing everything absolutely right, chipping away, bringing down that deficit, but it still surprises me that given that Dries van Toorn was going so rapidly early on, that they didn't use more of him behind the wheel.
Well, that is a surprise to me. I can't think of any logical, rational reason as to why they would have decided to make that pit stop so early, because in my view, you would keep the driver who is in the lead and comfortably there, lapping quicker than pretty much everybody, would have no trouble in maintaining that position until the pit stop window closed. Indeed. But 5 laps ago, van der Linde lost time, a significant amount of time. He was over 5 seconds down on the car he's pursuing, the number 2 Audi. Now that gap on the last lap was 1.5 seconds, and as they come across the line, or they will come across the line shortly, it could be easily under 1 second. There is the battle for the lead, the number 2 and the number 66.
Now we're talking about this gap coming down, and let's just see what it is at the end of this 23rd lap. It was 1.5 seconds, and it is now 0.11 of a second. Now, gap's coming down, no two ways about it. Van der Linde is going to catch Will Stevens, but he's then got to get past, and everybody we have heard from has talked about the narrowness of Brands Hatch, or of course the width of the car if you have it the other way, and how hard it is to overtake. So even if Van der Linde catches, there's no guarantee it's going to be an easy pass.
No, it's not. And Will Stevens runs just about on the limit on the exit of Graham Hill Bend. He's doing all he can to try and stall out the performance of Kevin van der Linde in the 66. And of course, this car is not a WRT car. This is an attempt to racing. So Kevin van der Linde seems to have got his car working at this point of the stage where they're both, it's sort of settled down for a moment, but then after that strange slow lap time from van der Linde, He's regrouped and got everything sorted out, and now the gap is, as they come into Westfield, probably under that second, and through the dip at Dingledale, up the hill into Sheencurve. A little bit of bobble just momentarily for the 66, but back in control, and the focus. You can almost sort of feel now the effect of the laser on the back of the front of the 66 Audi, trying to focus onto the back of the number 2. Gap will be under a second as they come across start finish line. But as David, as you pointed out, catching one thing, where do you make your pass?
Yeah, they come then. 24 laps done, 22 minutes to go. The gap, 0.7 of a second now between the top 2. Kelvin van der Linde pushing. So is Raffaele Marciello, who is doing purple sectors. He's running in 4th place. 1st to 4th is 7 seconds. But for as long now as van der Linde gets stuck behind Stevens, could they start to bunch up? Let's see. The 2 leading Audis very nearly together. Stevens' last lap was a 25.8, Marciello at 25.2, so he is creeping back into the picture.
Yes, the gap between the lead car and the 4th place at 7 seconds, as you point out, that's quite difficult. Remember, Marciello's having to deal with Fred Vervisch, who's actually now on that last lap beginning to drop back, so the pace of the 88 Mercedes has pulled it away momentarily from the 17 Audi. So Fred Vervisch went very hard very early as we look further back.
The Mercedes, Felix Morales, hard on the brakes late into paddock, and right onto the tail of Pierre Katherine, rides the curb, demolishes the floppy marker on the inside, and that might be a track limits query, but you can't argue with the commitment, can you?
No, I mean, that again is you're focusing on the car ahead of you, and you're not focusing on where you are on the racetrack, so maybe he just took a little bit too much lock, a bit too aggressive, roped the curb on the inside on those marker posts, but to find the inside limit of the corner, went skyward.
We've got a whole host of people being investigated for the transponder settings at the pit exit. Now, what penalty that might, if any, lead to, I'll keep you posted. The leaders go through, and the gap is 0.4 of a second now. So this is it, closer than ever, and very nearly. Van der Linde close enough to make a move. He has a cheeky nose to the inside there to try and unsettle Stevens, but the whole complexion is about to change. Now, the one to look for is number 1, Christopher Mies in 3rd place, because if these two squabble and trip over each other and hold each other up, it'll be 3 for the lead, not just 2.
Indeed, it could easily be. And you can see that Van der Linde's looking to put his 66 Audi always in one of the 2 wing mirrors on the number 2 Audi to try and distract Will Stevens, to try and force him to think backwards, not think forwards. That's really his best hope, to make him almost disorientate himself. And that would be what Van der Linde, I would believe, is trying to do. There you can see Christopher Mies just coming through Hawthorne, so these two make their way into Westfield.
In Sector 1, Stevens marginally faster. In Sector 2, they are about to get to the end of who will be the quicker of the 2 Audi drivers. Is it going to be Will Stevens, the leader? Yes, again, fractionally the faster. Kelvin van der Linde now got a bit stuck. So where does he make the move? And have a look behind. Christopher Mies quicker than both in Sector 1, quicker than both in Sector 2. So the number 1 Audi in 3rd place, which was 2.8 seconds back, is getting a little closer corner by corner. And Raffaele Marciello was over 7 seconds back. He's 6.3 adrift now as they go through. Nervous faces in every Audi garage up and down the pit lane as the leaders go through. We're on lap 27. It's 4/10 between the top 2 and still just over 19 minutes to go.
The 66 trying to make a dive up the inside. The reality was it was never a real opportunity. But again, using the tactic to act as a distraction to Will Stevens, putting on almost like a horse race where you put blinkers on a horse. He's got a set of metaphoric blinkers. He's not wanting to look at his mirrors. He does not want that information. He knows he can feel the proximity of the 66, but just doesn't want to allow that kind of control from Kelvin van der Linde to get into his head.
But it might not just be a 2-horse race, this, because Christopher Mies is lapping quicker behind them, and so is Raffaele Marciello. Marciello is the fastest of the top 4 at the moment. So they are concertinaing, no question about it. 18.5 minutes are on the clock. It is now 5.6 seconds, 1st to 4th. It was 7 seconds, remember, a couple of laps back, so the Mercedes is coming back into the mix. So is Christopher Mies in 3rd place as they round the left-hander at Sterling's now. But Will Stevens doesn't have to win by a big margin, he just has to win.
He's just got to stay ahead. If he wins by half a second or half a mile, he still wins.
Exactly right. Through Clark Curve they come, up towards the line now. So Will Stevens leads the way, and Kelvin van der Linde has done some of the hard work. He's caught But now the next part of the process has started. Where? How does he find a way past?
I thought maybe he was a little bit closer coming into Paddock Hill Bend to look to make a run up the inside into Druid. Right under the rear wing of Will Stevens. Audi comes out. The gap pretty much constant. The number 66 will have to wait for the one to accelerate, then you catch up. It's this sort of seesaw effect. Both cars running wide at the bottom of Graham Hill Bend on their absolute limit. Looks up the inside again to try and just continually distract Will Stevens. But Stevens has done a good job and not letting the 66 Audi get into his head any more than it is.
And then in third place, Christopher Mies. Look, there he is in the background, almost with them. Mies is only 1.7 seconds back, and he's taken 4/10 out in the first sector alone. And then Raffaele Marciello there, 4.9 seconds off the race leader. That Mercedes is flying. Fred Verviche gave with him in fifth. And a big cheer for Jack Manchester, who is sixth overall, leading the Silver Cup. That's a great job.
That is an excellent job. Very wise on the part of the ACA team to put Bastian, let Bastian stay in the car up until the very last seconds of the pit stop window being open. Gives Jack Manchester a great position to do his stint in. He's been carried forward by the good work that Nico Bastian did, and he's doing a good job within himself.
Race leaders through, 28 laps about to go in the book. 16 and 3/4 minutes on the clock. 3/10 is the margin between the two. Christopher Mies 1.2 seconds back, and then another 2.5 to Marciello. So first to fourth is now 4.2 seconds. Can we get them all together before the end? Can we get a change for the race lead? Will Stevens is doing everything asked of him. Keep the car in the lead. Don't make a mistake.
And that's what Will Stevens has done. He is not, as we are watching now, going into lap 29. Well, this car under his stewardship has not made any errors. He's been caught by the quicker Kelvin van der Linde. They're being caught by the even quicker Christopher Mies. But the difference is when you've got, look, it's like property. It's all about location. Well, Will Stevens has got the location here this weekend at Brands Hatch. It's called the lead of the race.
And Kelvin van der Linde wants that, and so does Christopher Mies, who is still chipping away, and so is Raffaele Marciello in fourth. So lap by lap, sector by sector, in fact, the blanket covering the top four is shrinking. There is van der Linde, and before long, of course, he's going to have a different problem. He's not going to have to think only about attacking, he's going to have to think about defending. Remember, Mies third is in a WRT Audi, as is Stevens, and this might be Will Stevens' get out of jail free card. His teammate comes up to attack and distract the second placed Attempto Audi, and that means he might be able to push and pull away.
And Vincent Vos, the boss of the WRT Belgian Audi team, looking at the monitors. He's not involved in the strategy. He knows, he's got faith that Will Stevens can do what he is there to do, but he knows that Kelvin van der Linde in the Attempto car is a very, very major threat. Again, getting close, but look, it's Christopher Mies who now in this last lap really has made this a three-way battle in effect for the outcome. 14 minutes, 50-odd seconds remaining.
1.2 covers the top three, and it's 3.5 back to Marciello, first to fourth. Therefore, there is the Mercedes. Look that he's almost there as well. So Will Stevens still having to work overtime here. He's not out of the woods yet because he is so busy trying to defend. 25s being done, 1 minute 25s by third and fourth. They're quicker than those in the 126s, the top two. And this is proof corner by corner. The top four getting closer, and now van der Linde is on his toes. He can see Mies coming, pulls out to have a look on the inside at Westfield. Dries van Toor looks on in the WRT pit bunker, but Will Stevens still leads the way. There, in second place is Kelvin van der Linde. What can he do, and where can he do it to get the lead?
There are very few places. We've seen he's tried everywhere. He's put his car in the mirrors pretty much all the corners around the racetrack. The place that I think he would like to try, but he's got to get close. This time, coming through clearways, he is right under the rear wing. If he can get into position, not going into Paddock Hill Bend, but to come out of Paddock and try and make that run up the inside. It's very, very tight. He took a very tight line in to Paddock, run slightly wider at the earlier part of the exit. I wouldn't have done that. I would have been maybe a little bit later making my cut so as to get a quicker exit, a more acute exit, and try and get alongside into Druid. But you know, it's easy to defend. Everywhere around Brands, you can defend easily without even going into being an unfair defence.
The gap first to fourth is down to 2.8 seconds now. Mirko Bortolotti, by the way, is in 11th spot, so he's not yet in the points, but he's doing his best to get into the mix after the car started at the back of the grid. But right now, it's all attention on Audi, Mercedes, first, second, third, fourth on lap 31. 13 minutes to go. Will Stevens doing a great job of defending this race lead. Kelvin van der Linde thinking now about what other options are open to him, because so far nothing has worked. Third, Christopher Mies, who is almost there now in a challenging position, and Raffaele Marciello is still quicker than any of those ahead of him.
Yes, Christopher Mies is now adding a little bit of spice to this battle for the lead, because all of a sudden has changed van der Linde's perspective on what he is trying to do. He knows if he maybe makes a small error in a pass on Will Stevens for the lead of this race, it'll be Christopher Mies he'll have to be fending off and not worrying about trying to catch back up to Will Stevens. And the Mercedes, bit by bit, it's a few tenths of a lap here and there, beginning to close. I think the time, not enough time for Marciello to do anything other than catch up to the tail of whichever of these three Audis ends up in third place of the checkered flag.
2.1 seconds first of all. I mean, there they are, all in shot for the first time, the leading quartet into Druids. Marciello has driven a mighty stint here to get the car as close. Can he gain a place? Could he get past Mies before Mies gets past van der Linde, before van der Linde gets past the race leader Will Stevens? Assuming anybody can prise open the door. 12 more minutes, 12 long minutes if you're the race leader Will Stevens.
It is, and I'm sure that Will Stevens working hard. I mean, you cannot believe how much hard work it is, not just to maintain the lead, but just to ensure that you don't make that tiny little error anywhere around the 9 principal corners of Brands Hatch. Again, van der Linde getting closer. He's going to have a look down the inside, not close enough going into Westfield, but trying yet again to harry, to worry Will Stevens, to put the young Essex man under pressure, to force him, make that error that he needs to give him the chance to take the lead.
But so far, Will Stevens stolidly stands his ground through Sterling's. They sweep now. And the gap at the start of this lap had crept up a little bit to half a second, but it's come down again. Kelvin van der Linde having a real push. Now, does the move start here? Let's see. Quick through Clark Curve. Does that tee him up for an opportunity coming through paddock up towards Druids?
To me, it's how he will take. If he stays tight-ish as he is doing now, he wants to be further to the left and then make a later apex and then try and undercut, but again, too far behind. Will Stevens has got Paddock Hill Bend absolutely sussed. He is not making a mistake. He knows where he has to put his car, and it's giving van der Linde no opportunities either in paddock or up into Druids.
And things are about to change for Christopher Mies as well, look, because only 8 tenths back from him is Raffaele Marciello. The leading 4 now covered by 1.6 seconds, and when we started talking about this, it was over 7. This is Marciello's view. Look, all the Audis ahead of him. Now, he has been able, like Kelvin van der Linde was earlier, like Christopher Mies has been, to catch up, but then you get this problem of being stuck. You can't find the width to get past. The BOP works to equate the cars, so your advantage disappears once you catch up to the pack ahead. How, if at all, can Marciello get through the traffic here?
Well, Raffaello is one of these drivers, I can assure you, is not going to waste time. He wants to catch. If he knows he can get closer to Christopher Haas, he will launch that Mercedes down the outside, the inside, any side of the racetrack he possibly can.
So through they come then into Sterling's, out of the left-hander, and now the speed builds on this run, down towards Clark Curve. It was 1.6 seconds first to fourth at the start of this lap, but Will Stevens still doing this great job up front, hanging on to the race lead as they come now up towards the timing line once again. He and Ries van Poel could be our third different sprint race winners out of 3 races if things stay as they are. Van der Linde looking closer again. Is Mies now having to think about dropping back and defending from this man Marciello? It's 1.4 covering the top 4 this time.
Well, status quo through Paddock Hill Bend, status quo into and out of Druids, and there you are. The gaps are constant. Kelvin van der Linde has tried pretty much everything. This part of the racetrack down to Surtees. Surtees was always a great corner to try and launch it. Look, he does the very thing, but he's not far enough alongside. He can't quite get the nose of the Audi where it needs to be to take the lead away from the Audi that currently is leading.
Still intrigued to see what Marciello can do now to try and get himself onto the podium. Christopher Mies there running in 3rd spot, and 4th is Raffaele Marciello, who was just fractionally slower this time in the 1st sector. And of course 5th is Fred Vervisch. He's going to be up with them shortly.
Well, Fred Vervisch fell away from Marciello because of the pace of the Mercedes, but now because everybody from Will Stevens back to the Mercedes in 4th place are being dictated by the pace of Will Stevens, that will allow Fred Vervisch to maybe marginally get closer to the tail of the Mercedes. At one point we thought that 17 Audi of Vervisch was going to find a way past the 88 Mercedes. It didn't happen.
8 more minutes are on the clock. What are we looking at? 5 laps, 6 laps. Let's see as they come up past the pits this time. Will Stevens, British driver, leads the British round of Blancpain Sprint over the timing line. 3/10 he is ahead of there. The South African Calvin van der Linde, the German Christopher Mies third, Italian Raffaele Macchiello is fourth as they make the run now up towards Druids, and van der Linde is getting ever more towy. Now he's running out of time. He'll be told on the radio of the fact that he's got fewer minutes left. He wants to lead anyway. He won't need much more motivation, but the commitment is coming again, and he needs to be moving around and trying to distract.
Let's see if he can do something up at the 30s. No, he's not close enough. It's Christopher Mies that now will be. He still shows to come up the inside into 30s. 30s is a very long corner with a very late apex. There is Will Stevens. Well, he'll not be looking as composed as he is in that portrait. He will be working as hard, and this is one of the best drives I think I've seen from Will Stevens throughout his Blancpain career.
To go along with that, he's not necessarily been the quickest in this stint, but he has driven a good defensive drive and maintained track position. Can he do so for 7 more minutes? Can Raffaele Macchiello get in and amongst the Audis? The R8s 1, 2 and 3, Mercedes AMG GT3 fourth then as they come to Stirling's, but we now have 1.2 seconds covering this leading quartet. Macchiello has been the real mover, and if you want to know the top 5, it's 2.8 covering the first 5 cars. Vervichi's almost there as well. There's van der Linde.
Just feeling that van der Linde's beginning to think, I'm running out of time, 6 minutes, 40 seconds or so. Did look like he was closing up a little bit coming into Stirling's Bend. Will Stevens stays low, then runs up high to take the natural late line into Paddock Bend, and again has got that little bit of advantage. He's got, what, 4/10 of a second to choose which part of the racetrack he actually wants to use, and that's frustrating for van der Linde.
How much of an effect in GT3 racing like this does aero make? We get used to talking about single seaters in this position where you get the dirty airflow and you can't go any quicker and you have to drop back, but is it a similar effect in a GT3 car or not?
Well, there will be an aero effect, but the side effect of aero is that it then has a bearing on your front tyre grip in particular, because if you're losing some aero, that means your front's going to scrub. You're going to maybe wear the tyre a little bit more, and the tyre might just fall outside of its optimum performance peak. So the aero has an effect on other issues. It's not simply the aero in its own right.
A mistake made at Surtees by Calvin van der Linde. Looks like he's dropped back a length or so. Christopher Mies is close, and Raffaele Macchiello is there in 4th spot as they come now through Westfield. 5 minutes and 38 seconds on the clock, which is ticking down and down and down. The gap, 11/10, covered 4 cars starting this lap as they work their way now up towards the Clearways and Clark Curve approach. Down they come. So up front remains Will Stevens. Is it going to be the British driver to hang on to a great win? Well, 5 more minutes remain. Let's see. Through they come. Raffaele Macchiello still hunting down Christopher Mies, who is hunting down Calvin van der Linde, and it's Will Stevens leading by half a second this time. So that gap has stretched a little as they work their way through Paddock. Drop down the hill, climb to Druids, everybody running wide, and Macchiello into the gravel with 2 wheels there. That proves the commitment. As cars go wider ahead and you match your speed against theirs, you go wider still. So Raffaele Macchiello, who drops back a little bit this time in fairness, runs wide, and is now going to play catch up again. But now we're into the last 5 minutes and it's looking very, very good for Will Stevens. It's been a great defence, this. No 2 ways about it. Second remains van der Linde. Third is Christopher Mies. Fourth, Macchiello. Verviche is 5th. And Jack Manchester 6th, heading for a Silver Cup win, which again is mighty impressive indeed, given his relative lack of race experience. Macchiello through Hawthorns, Verviche almost with him as well in the Stuart Leonard started Audi in 5th place. From Hawthorn now up to Dingle Dell. Scott Horst looking rather nervous in the pit bunker at the Attempto Racing Squad, Akinaka's team. But it's WRT, the Vincent Vost, Thierry Tassin's squad looking as though a win is going to go its way as they come then now down again towards Clearways and then on towards the right-hander of Clark Curve. There's Macchiello in 4th place. Less than 4 minutes to go now. So he, like Mies, like van der Linde, has done this hard work of catching, but now how does he find a way past? Can he find a way past and gain 1 more place out of this? Part of the problem that they all face is the relative narrowness of the circuit. The other is the BOP equates the cars, but then you run out of any advantage really. Nobody has bucket loads more horsepower than anybody else. Macchiello is wide at Druids as they swing through the hairpin, and now they drop down the hill for the 38th time. There's a meatball flag, mechanical warning flag being shown to the BMW. Lucas Morais has a wheel at it, not quite sure for why. That car's a long way back anyway in 16th place. Mirko Bortolotti still stuck in 11th, by the way, in the other Lamborghini that was from the back of the grid, one to watch in the early stages of the race. But it's all eyes on this great lead fight here. And Will Stevens, is he home and dry? He's going to get certainly one more lap out of it at the end of this, maybe even two. So the pressure is still on, and Dries van Toor is feeling it. There's nothing he can do. I'm still intrigued to know, maybe John will find out post-race why it was a shorter stint from Dries. But Will Stevens is the race leader and comes up towards Sterling. Lap 38, he led by half a second coming onto this lap. There is Fred Verviche, look, barrelling along in 5th, almost up with Marciello's Mercedes. Vincent Voss looking ever so nervous, the brain trust behind the WRT outfit, along with Thierry Tassin himself, like Vincent's former very successful racer. And the leading cars then come up towards the line, but dare one suggest this time, as the gaps open up a little, the drivers are starting to realise that they just are not going to be able to make progress unless a mistake comes ahead. The gap between 1st and 4th has collectively widened. And now, are they settling? Are they thinking about preserving cars, gaining points out of this race and getting ready for race 2? Let's see. Marciello is 4th, still hustling on though, best he can. Downhill they swing now through the left-hander at Graham Hill Bend. And we've got a yellow flag out in Sector 2. Now, is this going to change things? Somebody has had a drama in the sector they are now in. Try and find out who it is, where it is in a moment. We know it's none of the leading cars because they're only now coming into this zone of the lap. And that's your answer. Oh, Jack Manchester, the class leader, the Silver Cup class leader, has spun it away at Sheen Curve and he's in the gravel. And we've got time for one more lap at the end of this. And Jack Manchester is going no further, seemingly. So, yellow flags will wave. There it is, at Sheen Curve. The Mercedes is off the road. And Jack Manchester, I'm afraid to say, is out of the class lead that had looked so good, having spun the car into the gravel bed, and it looked as though that was all on his own. Now, all of a sudden, leader gets away, and 2nd and 3rd together. So Van der Linde has to go defensive, and Christopher Meeks tries to get up the inside as they come through to start the last lap. They're going to be side by side past the pits as Van der Linde got a problem because the Audi goes through, and Marciello tries to follow suit on the inside of Paddock, and there's contact between the two of them. Wide goes Van der Linde, through goes Verviche as well. 2nd to 5th. Marciello was a bit robust, but he had to seize the opportunity. He was going to get through anyway, I would have thought, but there was a run between them. But what caused the time to be lost for Kelvin van der Linde? Was it a problem? Because he'd certainly dropped away from the leader, and suddenly it was easy picking for the traffic behind him. So Christopher Meeks goes up to 2nd and makes it a WRT 1-2. Marciello gets up to 3rd as they come out of Surtees now. Verviche 4th, and 5th is Kelvin van der Linde. Can he do anything to fight back? I don't think he can. It just looks as though that car has lost pace. Now, granted, the contact at Paddock won't have helped the situation, but there was something that was causing him to drop away anyhow, and that now gives Will Stevens a big lead going on to this final few corners and the final lap of what has been a very lively race indeed. Through they turn, past Jack Manchester's car. They're now down towards the left-hander at Sterling's. Speed builds down towards Clark Curve. It is going to be a 3rd different winning crew in 3 races, because Dries van Toor and Will Stevens are going to come through to win race 1 at Brands Hatch in the Blancpain GT Series Sprint Cup. The winning margin, 11/10 of a second. Dries van Toor is delighted. 2nd goes the way of Christopher Meeks and Alex Riberas, ahead of Raffaele Marciello and Michael Meadows 3rd. 4th, Fred Verviche and Stuart Leonard. And 5th, dropping back on the last lap, Kelvin van der Linde and Stijn Schrothorst. And here, a drag race to the line, and it's a change. Felix Torales takes 5th place ahead of Pierre Katherine by 18 thousandths of a second. And in fact, that was for 5th, not 6th, because van der Linde with a puncture comes through in 8th place. And it wasn't, as far as I can see, on the side of the contact. It was the left rear corner. And so Kelvin van der Linde has taken the flag, but it looked as though the tyre was going down, and it's now gone down. So that's why the pace was going, because the tyre was deflating. It has gone pop post-race. And there, 66, Kelvin van der Linde, with effectively a slow puncture at the very end, seemingly, comes home in 8th spot. So it would have been Pierre Katherine for 5th, but he got done on the line by Felix Torales by 18 thousandths. Christopher Hasse got up to 7th as well. And down to 8th, Kelvin van der Linde. What a finish, what a race. Drama all the way. and a change on the line between Sorales and Kaffer. And this was the move for second place. So now we know where the pace had disappeared to. The tyre was going down. Through on the inside goes Christopher Mies. Marciello up the curb. Contact between the two. Tempted to say it was just one of those things, really. Van der Linde was putting up as best a defence he could, but with the tyre going down, the car was never going to handle perfectly, was it? Through on the inside goes the Audi. Marciello up the curb. And actually that shot suggested it was barely a brush. From the outside it looked a lot worse, but two delighted drivers. Will Stevens wins on home soil, and co-driver Dries Van Toor with him. Well, a very dramatic end to race one here. It's going to be a separate grid based on separate qualifying times for the second race to come a little bit later on in the afternoon at the race starting at around about 16:25 local time. We're now 1 o'clock local time. But there you can see delighted WRT crew members. Dries Van Toor says to Will Stevens, turn around because the cameras are ready. John has been dispatched to go and have a word with the winning drivers, and we'll be there very shortly indeed. It is Will Stevens and Dries Van Toor, winners of race one at Brands Hatch, with John Watson.
Dries, a bit of a walk in the park in reality for you this afternoon.
It's never easy, but you know, the car was running well, like it's always doing actually. Yeah, I'm really happy. I mean, what we lost in Zolder, we got back here, and yeah, I mean, Will did a great job. I don't think it was his easiest stint, but he just did no mistake, and he kept him behind, and yeah, really happy, really happy.
Well, Will, you were under pressure pretty much all from the minute you got into the car. That was one of the best drives I've ever seen from you.
Yeah, you know, to be honest, this weekend we've been super fast on the Indy part of the track and struggling a little bit around the back, but you know, where I'm strongest is out front and making no mistakes. I didn't make one, and I was pretty comfortable out in the front, to be honest. They had the pace at the start, but I knew once we got into a rhythm we would be strong. So super happy. Dries did a great job at the start, and we need to keep racking up the wins.
I mean, I thought you'd have been sweating like a racehorse, but you're actually quite calm.
No, as I said, honestly, where I feel really strong is just doing my own thing, making no mistakes, and I know that I can do that. So you've got to not focus on what's behind you. You know they're there. But yeah, super happy. I drove a good race, and I'm happy for that.
Both did a great job. Well done.
And Dries Van Toor making that point that it sort of makes up for the disappointments of Zolder, where they got one penalty for that pit stop infringement, demolishing the cones, and then another when Dries Van Toor's way in the second race, squeezing Simon Gachet at turn one. So second place to Christopher Mies and Alex Ribeiras, as they're the winners, celebrate with the team. Let's go back down to John.
Alex, it looked to me like the opening drivers had a relatively nice day at Brands Hatch, sun, shine, not too much traffic.
Yeah, life was a bit easier for us in the first stint. You know, I was starting P4 on the outside. It's my first time here in Brands Hatch, so it's always tricky. But I managed to overtake one position in the first corner on the outside. It was quite a good way to start the race. And then finally, you know, Chris did a great stint. It was a great battle to watch from the box. And yeah, P2, it's fantastic also for the championship. So really, really happy.
Christopher, I was coming down from the commentary booth, so I missed your pass. Was that close your eyes and think of Germany?
It was quite tight on start finish. It didn't give me much room, but in the end, I could make it stick. It was a long, hard race. If you're battling for like 30 minutes, it's quite exhausting. And I'm happy for the team that we scored a 1-2. It's really good for the championship for team and drivers. It's really, really good.
Well done, guys. Great job.
Thank you.
It certainly was a brave pass, wasn't it, by Christopher Mies, launching it up the inside. And then for third place, it is the Raffaele Marciello Michael Meadows Mercedes. Now the BMW, just on a separate note, Lucas Moraes under investigation for failing to follow the mechanical flag. In other words, he didn't respond to the black and orange flag. So the BMW team being investigated. Now Audi, Mercedes. Third, Raffaele Marciello and Michael Meadows with John.
Michael, very solid defence in your stint.
Yeah, I got jumped at the start by the Audis. They're a bit quicker than us, and I struggled with a bit of understeer, but there was not much I could do really, so I was just stuck in fourth, 1 second behind the Audi, and we had to wait till the pit stops to see if we could do anything, and luckily at the end, Raffaele did a great move on the Audi at turn one, so in the end, not a bad result.
Good man. Raffaele, I mean, going up into Paddock Hill Bend, 3 cars almost side by side, how come you came out without anybody getting involved?
Lucky, maybe. I mean, I like to, I always attack, I always try to pass the car in front. In Zolder, I did quite a nice move. Here again, I mean, the car is great, I can stay close, I can attack, so it's just a matter to find the right time and to take the chance. I did it, and yeah, I'm happy to be in the podium.
And what can you do later on this afternoon?
We start from P2, so I mean, I don't want to say we have to win, but we have to go on the podium again, so we have to push hard.
Good man, thank you.
Well, certainly Raffaele Marciello did push hard. Michael Meadows in that first stint going strongly as well. So the race results confirm a win for Dries van Toor and Will Stevens, ahead of Alex Riberas and Christopher Mies. Third, Michael Meadows and Raffaele Marciello, the first non-Audi home, ahead of Stuart Leonard and Fred Verviche. Up to fifth, Nicolas Jamin, Felix Sorales, ahead of Peter Skoghorst and Pierre Katherine. Simon Gachet and Christopher Haase seventh, and down to eighth. Doesn't seem fair, does it? Stein Skoghorst and Kelvin van der Linde from the Lexus, and Norbert Siedler and Stefan Ortelli. And into the top 10, Christian Engelhardt and Mirko Bortolotti from Clean and Costa, and then Perez Companc and Caldarelli to round out the first dozen. In 13th place, 82, the Hesemans Pereira Lamborghini, ahead of Carlo Van Dam and Petit Pierre Bacti. The BMW of Watson and Morais 5th from Josh Cagle and Aaron Taylor-Smith. Ian Loggie's Bentley with Callum McLeod 17th. Neil Stevenart, Marcus Winkelhock next, ahead of Afterweb and Corneve, with the one retirement after all that being Nico Bastian and Jack Manchester, who should have really been on for a class win. But sadly, the car ending up in the gravel and out of the race. So, an excellent first race, lots of drama, and that now means the championship looks like this. Dries van Toor and Will Stevens are 4.5 points up on Kelvin van der Linde and Stein Skoghorst, ahead of Raffaele Marciello and Michael Meadows. Then come Alex Riberas and Christopher Mies, ahead of Mirko Bortolotti and Christian Engelhardt. Stuart Leonard with different co-drivers over Zolder and Brands Hatch is on his own. Next, ahead of Nicolas Jamin and Felix Sorales. Ezequiel Perez Companc and Andrea Caldarelli are ahead of Robin Frins, who was at Zolder but not here. Frederic Verviche here but not Zolder is 10th. And then it's Alessio Picariello, Gilles Magnus, ahead of the disappointed Peter Skoghorst and Pierre Katherine. Christopher Haase, Simon Gachet come next, ahead of Alexis Corneve. Well, there's lots to entertain sports car GT fans here, because there are some delectable machines in the supercar parade lineup, and there's also plenty of racing on track. Porsches yesterday, a huge field of Caterhams has just disgorged itself onto the circuit. But the drivers for the Blancpain GT Series Sprint Cup are making their way up towards the podium. One or two people are finding alternative ways of entertaining themselves until the second race. That's stretching the point, but the winning drivers will be up on the podium very, very shortly indeed at the end of a great race, which began with Dries van Toor having the advantage into turn one. At Druids, though, it all unravelled quickly for Vladimir Afterweb, whose car slithered off the road into the gravel bed, and that was an early safety car period. And Christian Engelhardt was also in strife early doors, because he got elbowed out wide going through Graham Hill Bend. As he went off the circuit, the safety car was deployed, and the field got itself ready for racing once again on the restart. Christian Engelhardt was trying to get himself back up through the pack. Grasser had to switch around the order of the Lamborghinis to try and bring the quicker car into position, so it got past Hesemans and then got past the sister car of Perez Companc. The Emil Frey Lexuses were going strongly, watched by the guests as through past the BMW charged Christian Engelhardt on the same lap, but he then came for the pit lane. The leader, though, Dries van Toor, was in very early indeed, perhaps a surprise to some, as the car made its way into the pit lane early, but many stops cycled through, and that put Nico Bastian into the lead of the race. It meant that he was therefore able to consolidate things up front, handing over then to Jack Manchester, leading the Silver Cup, and all looked good until sadly Jack blotted his copybook right at the very end, only a couple of laps from home. So it was Will Stevens in the lead, but the gap soon came down. A charging Kelvin van der Linde put himself onto the tail. Christopher Mies caught up as well, running in third place, and fourth, Raffaele Marciello got in on the act as well. There were nervous faces in the pit lane as the drivers worked up towards Druid late race. But then, as van der Linde started to lose pace with a deflating tyre, Christopher Mies got onto his tail. Then the places changed, and it was a win for Will Stevens and Dries van Toor. Up to second, Christopher Mies and co-driver Alex Riberas, and a change in Silver Cup as well, because into the gravel went the Jack Manchester Nico Bastian Mercedes. This was how things changed at Paddock Hill Bend. Van der Linde losing pace anyway, through on the inside went Raffaele Marciello for third place, and delight Dries Van Toor and Will Stevens, winners of race 1 here at Brands Hatch. And so the drivers then are ready, more or less, for the podium, and they will be there shortly. And the winning drivers make their way now onto the podium. For third place, Raffaele Marciello and Michael Meadows are there. For second spot for WRT will be Alex Riberas and Christopher Mies, the Audi drivers, then part of the Monza winning crew. But a star at Monza and a star at Brands Hatch has been Dries Van Toor, and a real star for that defensive drive. A winner here as well. Will Stevens will come out in a moment to join the WRT representative and to join Dries Van Toor as winners of race 1 at Brands Hatch. After a great defence, it is a win for Will Stevens and Dries Van Toor. Out onto the podium comes the Belgian-British partnership. Handshakes all round. Audi, Mercedes across the brands for the top 3 finishers. And now they will be the national anthem of the winning team. A race win for Will Stevens and Dries Van Toor, who wonder where the music has gone, because the background is now caterers that have just blasted away into their race. But the drivers on the podium now can have the presentations, because the trophies are being brought forward. And for the third placed drivers, the trophies handed over to Michael Meadows, the British driver, and Italian Raffaele Marciello. Now for second place in this WRT 1-2, there is the trophy for Christopher Mies, the trophy also there for Alex Riberas, and the team trophy for WRT. But it is going to be a British driver on the top step. Will Stevens wins with Dries Van Toor here at Brands Hatch. The trophy is presented, and the winning drivers hold the trophies aloft for the photographs. And then Le Patron, Stefan Rattel, will be here with the checks handed over to the entries for both sprint and endurance championships. 5,000 for third, 10,000 euros for second, 12,500 euros it is for the winners. Race 1 at Brands Hatch won by Will Stevens and Dries Van Toor. So the trophies presented, the checks presented, and now, inevitably, there is the champagne. The celebrations are underway at Brands Hatch for Will Stevens and Dries Van Toor, and for the Belgian WRT team that has taken honours in this opening race. So now the podium will be made ready for the Silver Cup and for Pro-Am. And then the drivers will make their way to the press conference. I think there's one group photograph that's being orchestrated at the moment. And everyone to the front of the podium. The fans overlooking the pit straight are watching that, and also looking at another race that is underway. But here at Brands Hatch, overall, there's a lot for Audi to celebrate. A race win for Will Stevens and Dries Van Toor. And Will Stevens doing, as he was saying, this superb job of withstanding the pressure, very confident under pressure, and coming out on top. So race 2 with a completely different grid based on qualifying, not race results this year, will be coming out later on in the afternoon, and it's Fred Verviche, after his first ever pole in the Sprint Cup, that will be on pole position for that. It'll be interesting to see how he fares later on in the day, and whether or not it's going to be the same pacey cars that we've just witnessed being up at the front, ready for the second race and that great battle. There the champagne is sprayed on the podium. The Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit lending itself to some very, very tight racing. And I suppose in a sense, because it is hard to overtake in a big wide GT car, it's always going to be tight, always going to be close. As we go back to the podium, and the drivers are there in Pro-Am. Piti Bhirombhakdi for the top step, along with Carlo Van Dam, and joined by Callum McLeod and Ian Loggy, and third Neil Stephenart and Marcus Winkelhock at the end of an action-packed opening race here at Brands Hatch. There's more to come later on in the day as the Castle Ferrari drivers celebrates, but for now, from John Watson and David Addison, it's goodbye from an action-packed Brands Hatch. See you later.